Okay. Hi there, bird class. Hope everybody's doing all right today. I was looking for images for coloring, and I thought these were appropriate given that we talked about snakes last time and we're talking about chickens today. Looks like they're not as popular of images as some of the other ones we've had, so I'll try and do better next time. Okay, so announcements. There is a quiz and a short answer question due before midnight on Sunday, April 3rd, and the project is due before midnight on Sunday, April 17th. Most of you guys have decided to do papers, so those will be submitted either on Blackboard or by sending me an email. I emailed everybody who signed up for a project, but I can't find my sheet of paper with that note on it, so I will double check that. When we were talking about travel cases for birds, I told you I had an image of a cockatoo who had eaten a cat carrier. Well, this is it right here. I found it, thought you guys would appreciate it. Yeah, that is a lot of damage. Before we get started talking about chickens, you may not be aware of this, but I have a background in virology. I teach another course at North Shore about epidemics, and I wanted to give you guys a chance, if you want to ask any questions about COVID, because right now, a lot of places are getting rid of the mask mandates, and North Shore is getting rid of a mask mandate as of April 11th. And I thought you guys might want to ask questions of somebody with a good science background in diseases, which I have.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was wondering, are those N95 masks, those are the ones that only work, right?
Those are the best ones to get. N95, KN95 is the next one down. Right. So the N95s that I found all have elastic that goes around the back of the head.
Right.
And it gets caught in your hair. It's kind of uncomfortable. The KN95 ones that I have go around the ears. Okay. The third best option is surgical masks, those blue or pink or whatever color masks. Yeah. Is the pandemic getting any better? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for you. And by not having a good answer, the answer is no. We did have a decline in cases, but we are now having another increase in cases. So cases are going back up again. This is probably going to be the trend for quite a while. Cases will go up, then they're going to go down, then they'll go back up again. None of us want to get it. The best way to prevent it is to be cautious, to get vaccinated, get boosted, wear a mask. If you're inside, especially in crowded spaces, I am not going to go without a mask in my in-person classes. It's just not going to happen. There's no way I'm going to go without a mask. You can not be as concerned when you're outside. Right now, I watch the numbers pretty closely, and I use the trends to decide what I'm safe, what I feel safe about. And I have eaten in restaurants in the past 2 years, but only when pandemic numbers in my area are down. COVID is not a good thing to get, even if you are young and healthy and vaccinated. You can still get breakthrough COVID, which can be mild or it can be nasty. The thing that I worry about more is the long COVID and post-COVID disease. So long COVID is when you had COVID and recovered, but you're not back to normal. So a lot of these symptoms are fatigue and neurological problems, problems remembering things, problems concentrating, dizziness, that sort of stuff. Yeah, smell and taste. We don't know how long COVID has the potential to last. Some people recover from long COVID, but other people have literally had it for 2 years. And I know at least one person who was a college student, relatively healthy, and is now on disability because she has long COVID so bad she can't work, she can't go to school. In addition to that, after you've had COVID, you are at higher risk for certain other medical problems. I haven't heard about hair loss. That's interesting. But I know it can increase your risk of heart attacks, strokes, and the most recent publication says it increases your risk of diabetes. So it's not something to take lightly. Faith, absolutely wear a mask in those biology labs. The ones on both of the North Shore campuses don't have great ventilation. So even if your instructor says you don't need it, I would absolutely use a mask in those labs. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to scare you guys, but I want you to be very clear on the risks. We are still having hundreds of people in this country die on a daily basis. I haven't looked at the most recent number, but it's 800 to 900. So that is telling you something about how bad things still are. Yeah, you're lucky if you didn't get it from your husband there, Mary. Oh, Kristen, avian influenza. That is on the agenda. I think it's probably going to be next week before we get to that. But yes, avian influenza. Yeah, we'll just cover it next week. Any other questions? Yeah, this whole pandemic is just not something that any of us want to deal with. And unfortunately, it's gonna be around for a while. But the vaccines are good. The vaccines do reduce your risk of getting it. They do, if you get it, they reduce your risk of hospitalizations, they reduce your risk of death, they reduce your risk of these post-COVID symptoms and other diseases that can be triggered by COVID. So strongly recommended, vaccines and masks. Yep. Okay. Oh, Abigail, absolutely wear a mask at graduation. Yeah. They tend to crowd people in very tight at graduation. I don't know if they're cutting down how many people can go, but I'm not graduating, so it's not quite the same thing for me. It's not that big of a deal for me. I would not go to graduation this year. I've gone before, and it's, you know, you feel like you're sitting shoulder to shoulder with people. Oh, are they doing several different dates? That would be awesome. That would be really a good idea. Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yep. If you're graduating, you should try and go because it's a big deal. And you should celebrate. If you're not comfortable going, you should do some kind of celebration anyway, because graduating is a huge deal. It's a big accomplishment. It's something to be very, very proud of. All right, now that I've spent the first 15 minutes of class talking about something that's not related to birds, let's get back to birds. So what we're going to be talking about today is basically backyard chickens. That's where we're going to start. So keeping chickens in your backyard, laws vary. A lot of places, the most common laws are things that will limit numbers and say no males, no roosters, because roosters are going to crow, and they are going to crow very loudly, and they are going to crow at all times of the day or night. They don't limit their calls to sunrise. They'll call at 3 a.m. if they wake up. So if you don't want to piss your neighbors off, no males. It's a little tricky. Most people get chicks from like farm supply. You can also get chicks from mail order. And these are fine ways to do it. I mean, it sounds kind of strange to mail order chickens, but there is a long, long history of companies that do this, and they ship them very shortly after hatching. And generally the chicks do pretty well. You don't have high mortality with them, which I would kind of expect if you're shipping day-old baby birds, but chickens are a domestic species, and they're pretty tolerant of things that would stress out other types of birds. So I love this chicken enclosure. It's huge. It's got an indoor area for the chickens. It's got water. It's got a bench so a person can come visit. And it's got a nice screened walls and roof. This kind of construction, this is called a geodesic dome. Geodesic. I'm not sure that's spelled right. And it's very easy to to construct something like this. So this was probably made by them, but it is sturdy. Geodesic domes are very sturdy. And it's big. I like that it's big. So we're going to start by talking about feed options. So there are different feeds for different stages of life. Unlike a lot of bird seed for things like parrots and conures and parakeets, you know, we have pelleted diets for those birds, and they're really good, but there are a lot of different options for chickens. And chickens eat pellets very well. But again, just like with indoor pet birds, well, I guess chickens can be pets, you should supplement with vegetables, fruits, and insects. Now you can do this by giving them fruits and vegetables, by buying things like mealworms for them, or you can let them roam free in the backyard. Certainly, this can be done with a lot of chickens if you've got a small number of them. Chickens can fly. They're not great flyers, and most chickens tend not to fly that much, but some of them will like to roam. So you've got to be aware that they might go into the neighbor's yard. I had neighbors who had chickens, and she lived across the street and like 2 houses down, and her chickens would fly over the fence, wander around the neighborhood, come over into my yard. I didn't mind. I was kind of concerned about the chickens, but some people might object to that. And chickens can do a lot of damage to a garden. Yeah, a lot of chickens are very, very easy to keep in your yard. They're pretty homebodies. Her chickens were weird, liking to wander around. Okay, so if you are supplementing their diet, if you make a vegan meal, chickens can get your leftovers. A lot of things that we cook with for ourselves are okay for chickens. Meat and eggs in small amounts, absolutely. No dairy. And I do want to say here, chicken nutrition is better understood than parrots or finches or canaries or any of the other chickens. So chicken feed is really pretty good and an almost complete diet for these guys. Adding in the vegetables and the fruits, occasionally insects. It's good mental stimulation for them, and it helps them, you know, just be a little bit healthier. But they can live a good long life on chicken feed. Now, if you're looking for eggs, chickens start laying under 1 year old. So they start laying eggs very, very young. No male required. The females, the hens will lay eggs, and great. There you go. There's your breakfast. They may not lay in winter. So if you want fresh eggs in winter, you need supplemental lighting. And peak egg laying happens in the first 2 to 3 years of life. After that, they'll still lay eggs, but not as many. And I don't have the exact, why don't I have that written down? I don't have the exact life expectancy for chickens, but I think it's around 10 years. So they'll lay eggs for a couple of years, and then you've got quite a lot of years where they're not laying as many eggs. You should collect eggs daily. You don't want to leave them sitting out, just because they can get really dirty. If you don't have a rooster, the eggs will not be fertile. So there's no chance of getting a chick if you don't have roosters. Don't wash them. I know that sounds weird. You wash them before you use them, before you crack them open, but don't wash them when you collect them. They don't need to be refrigerated if they're unwashed. So the US washes chicken eggs before sale. And the US does it because of concern about salmonella. Most of the world does not wash their chicken eggs. And most of the world, chicken eggs just sit in a bowl on the counter. So if you have your own chickens, you can do that as long as you don't wash the eggs until you're getting ready to cook with them. Most people wash them right before cracking them open. All right, so if you haven't taken a screenshot, this is a good time to take a screenshot. So what do we need in terms of enclosures? Yes, you can keep chickens with other animals, including goats and ducks. Absolutely. Yeah, salmonella is primarily a problem, or more likely to be a problem, in factory farmed chickens. There is a vaccine for salmonella. If I were keeping chickens, I would just get them vaccinated. Then you just absolutely don't have to worry about it. Okay, so we call chicken enclosures like this coops. It's just a general term for an enclosure. For home flocks, we recommend 2 to 3 square feet per bird in the enclosure. Now, a coop like this is probably good for maybe 2 chickens. You never want to keep them alone. They like company. It's kind of on the small side, but it can get moved around the yard. This would be much better for a nighttime enclosure. So you let the chickens out during the day, and then at night they go in. There's a nest box. There's a perch inside the little enclosed area, a sliding door so you can make them stay inside. Chickens are not always smart enough to go inside when the weather's bad, for example. And it has very strong galvanized wire mesh. I like that they call this fox proof, and they have a waterproof roof. So this kind of hutch is kind of fancy, but it's a good hutch for birds that have some time outside of their hutch or coop. You can also make chicken runs, which is kind of what we were seeing in the last picture with the big geodesic dome. These are enclosed areas that are outside. They provide more space, ideally 8 to 10 square feet per chicken. Still protected from predators and roofed to prevent escapes. All right, if you want to take a screenshot, go ahead. What kind of supplemental lighting would be used for egg laying in the winter? That's a good question, Abigail. Winter light would be, you want to extend the day length. And in New England, you know how winters can often be very gloomy? So more light that makes it feel like it's brighter during the day. You can use wide spectrum lights with UV. So remember, we were just talking about ultraviolet light for birds in captivity. That's the kind of light that you would want to get. You can find relatively large lights designed for fish tanks that have a lot of wide spectrum, including in the UV range. I've also seen them for sale for people who keep plants indoors. That's what this light back here is. You can see I've got some plants that need some TLC. They get some TLC if they're in my office here. So that light, it's not a big light, but you could certainly put it in a smaller area for your chickens. I think it was like 30 bucks. So they're not that expensive. Of course, the bigger the space, the more you're going to need. Heat lamps worked. Oh, great. Glad to hear that, Fiona. I haven't heard that one. That's interesting. I'm gonna make a note.
Sorry, I just randomly turned on my mic, but now I have a question. Is it that in the winter that would, like, if you provided no light whatsoever, they literally won't lay eggs? Or is it just like some of them will, some of them won't, just depending on the individual?
It's very dependent on the individual.
Okay, yeah, because we just gave them heat lamps and they all of them laid eggs, and it was the same number that they would normally lay eggs in the summer. So
Wow.
I don't know, maybe we just had special chickens.
It could be that you had special chickens. I'm sure there's a lot of breed to breed variability. I'm going to have to look into that heat lamp thing. That sounds like a very easy solution. Makes them think it's summertime. All right, so screenshot if you want it. Yes, different breeds of chicken lay more or less. Some breeds of chicken lay eggs of different colors. So some will lay greenish, bluish, brown. Some lay more eggs, some lay less, some lay bigger eggs, some lay smaller eggs. So there's a lot of diversity in in chickens for how much and how big and what the eggs look like and that sort of stuff. Lots of variability. Okay. This is another one of those nighttime coops. This is a mobile or movable coop. Is there a difference with the different colored eggs? The difference is the breed of chicken. There's not really a taste difference there. Although I will say, if you get fresh eggs, either from backyard chickens that you have or a neighbor has, grocery store eggs, not nearly as good. Much, much better. Duck eggs are also fantastic. I see there's some ducks in this picture as well. However, if you're doing hard-boiled eggs, older eggs are easier to peel. The fresher the egg, the harder it is to peel. Movable coop. These are great for chickens that get out during the day. So you can see the chickens are all out, they're running around. At night, they'll go into the coop, but this coop can be moved so you don't end up with a really filthy area of chicken poop. You know, the chickens roost in one area, they poop there during the morning and at night, and then you move it to another part of the lawn and let that chicken poop be your grass fertilizer. And again, you're reducing the risk of predation and wandering around into the neighbor's yard. Or having your neighbor's dog run into your yard, which can also be catastrophic. Now, outdoor chickens will have parasites at a much higher level than those that are kept strictly indoors. But they're not that harmful to the chickens. So there are things that can be used to treat them for parasites. And most can handle a small parasite load, so a small number of parasites without having any ill effects. This is true across the board for most animals. And even for people, you know, if you have a couple of hookworms, you can deal with it. It's not that big of a deal. If you have hundreds of hookworms, then it can impact your health. But a healthy animal can usually keep their internal parasite load under control. Okay. Get a screenshot here. One thing that can happen in chicken flocks is bird on bird aggression. Chickens will have a pecking order. Why we call it a pecking order? We call it a pecking order after chickens. So a pecking order means one bird is going to be the most dominant bird, and then there'll be a second dominant, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then somebody's at the bottom who gets picked on by everybody else. The most dominant bird will pick on the others. The second one will pick on everybody but the most dominant one. And how bad that aggression is varies dramatically from chicken to chicken. A lot of chickens will get along perfectly fine without any issues of aggression. Others will just be mean. And in fact, oh, Faith, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I remember this from high school. A friend in my class, she a friend in my class. She owned chickens, and one of the chickens actually died from the injuries it sustained from getting beat up by the rest of the flock.
Yeah, they can do that. And they can come after you too. Sometimes they will bully you. You can't let them get away with bullying you, which that is an easier said than done sort of thing. Um, the comment about the disease outbreak in the Ipswich area, we're going to be talking about diseases, and that's a good time to bring that up again. I know we're talking about chickens right now, but we'll talk about diseases specifically next week. Yeah, maybe you'll remember it when I mention it. And what is that yellow thing on the chicken on the left? Those are chicken glasses. And you're going, hey, wait, but there's no glass there. This is an aggression reducer. It's going to reduce the aggression. This chicken wants to peck on other chickens in the flock. So you can put these things on their face, and that chicken now has their front vision blocked. They can't see directly in front of them, which means that when they're trying to go pick on somebody, when they get close enough to start pecking on somebody, on another chicken, they can't see that chicken very well. So they can't strike as easily, and they're not as likely to strike. These do work. I do know people who've kept chickens and used these sorts of things to keep them from doing a lot of damage to others. Not surprisingly, if you see behavior problems, you want to rule out health problems first. A sick chicken has the potential to be more aggressive. And you may need to separate some. But the best thing you can do, a lot of times chickens become aggressive for the same reason that pet birds might become aggressive. Same kinds of reasons here. And one of those is boredom. Especially if they don't have the opportunity to wander around your backyard. So, enrichment reduces aggression. And this is true regardless of the cause of the aggression. You give the chickens something more interesting to do, they're going to do it. This is chicken tetherball. This is a cabbage, and you just run a rope through the middle of the cabbage, and the chickens can peck at it to get little bits of that nice leafy greens off. But because it's on a rope, it's going to move around a lot. So it's hard for them to get that food off. So they spend a lot of time working on this. How often do the chicken glasses work effectively? I can't give you a number on that, Abigail. I know people who've used them successfully. I do not know anybody who's tried them and not had them work, but my number of people I know who've tried them is pretty small. So they could fail occasionally. but I can't give you a how often kind of problem there, kind of answer there. Kicking apple cores around. That sounds interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to provide enrichment for your backyard chickens. All right, anybody want to take a quick pick? Yep, it's another one of those individual chicken things. And once again, some breeds are going to be more aggressive than others. And then there are house chickens. There are people who keep chickens in the house. Chickens can be friendly and affectionate. They cannot be house trained. So there are chicken diapers. So the chicken doesn't just poop all around your house. Yeah, it is kind of gross, but a lot of people are really coming to appreciate chickens as a pet. This is very helpful for males. Generally speaking, when people get chickens, they get a box of chicks, either from the hardware store or the farm store, mail order, and you don't know if you have males or females. You grow them up, and some of them are going to be male and some are females. What do you do with the males? The males are going to be more aggressive, and they're going to be very noisy. So if you look at the MSPCA website, the Nevins Farm website, they always have roosters because a lot of people will take the roosters to the animal shelter to try and get rid of them. Is going to New Hampshire kind of code for they end up in the pot? I've known people who've got
no, I just know that every Easter, my sister and my niece, they get baby chicks. And when they wind up with the roosters, somehow they always wind up taking them up to New Hampshire somewhere. There's a place up there that takes them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's more rural up there, so.
Yeah. Fewer rules as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Cockfighting is generally, I mean, certainly you can just take any rooster and train them a little bit to fight. A lot of those birds are trained for that. They're bred for aggression. So it is something that you do need to be aware of. The people that I know who've had chickens when they get a box, and some of them are males, the males end up for dinner. All right, so if you want a screenshot of this, there's not much written up here, but you're welcome to do it. And I'm going to go to sharing my, come on. Okay, so you can see chicken diapers are one of those things you can train your chickens to wear them without any problem. So there are lots of places that sell chickens online. And these websites are often very good sources of information. This one I've looked at a lot for information. You can find things like special or exotic breeds. Yep, it is chicken season right now, or baby chick season right now. So you can see these are bantam chickens. Bantam chickens are smaller than standard chickens. And you can see that they come in all kinds of different feather types. So these guys are fuzzy. These guys have curled feathers. These guys are kind of chunky. They come in lots of different colors. They come in these, you know, with these accessories like this hood here or feathers on the feet. They also have by friendly. So you can say, I want friendly chickens. So here are some options for that. They have options if you want different colored eggs, specifically by color. If you want a lot of eggs, these are the ones that are best for laying eggs. You guys are in New England, so cold hardy would be important. You can select for that. And of course, you can go for the rare breeds. And, you know, you can get things like this guy, this blue chick. I mean, my goodness, look at that color. Some of these are gorgeous. And information. How to pick a breed. How to calculate how many birds you want. This place also sells slightly older birds and ducks and geese. I haven't ordered chickens. I haven't kept chickens, I'll be honest, but this place does have a good reputation and a good website. And yeah, Tractor Supply Company, that's a fantastic place to go get your chickens as well. All right. So that is kind of the wrap up of chickens. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the other poultry that people keep. Again, we are talking about pets, not so much for farming. Ducks, just like chickens, there's lots of varieties or breeds. Chickens will dig, they'll scratch the ground up, they'll tear your plant up. Ducks don't dig. They will eat vegetables. If you've got a vegetable garden, they'll eat those. They'll eat grubs, they'll eat worms, they'll eat grass. They are very messy. So chicken poop is pretty dry. Duck poop is very wet. Ducks are all about the water. So their poop is going to be wet. And when I have worked with ducks, I think that they should start using ducks to fill in potholes. Because let me tell you, if you have a small enclosure with a bunch of ducks in it and they poop all over the place and then they stomp all over their poop, that stuff is hard as concrete. And it's very hard to keep the enclosures clean enough. Ducks need water, not just for drinking. They need it for bathing, swimming, and drinking. And this means in the winter too. So baby pools are great, but make sure they can get out. These guys are not going to have any problems getting out of this baby pool. Younger chicks would have a problem. So you would need to provide some way for them to get up on something like a brick and then jump out. Because they can get, ducks are not as likely to get chilled by being wet for a long period of time. They're pretty tolerant of that. Their feathers are pretty waterproof, but young chicks, young ducklings, I should say, not so good. Would you have to train them for stepping out of the pool? Adult ducks, no, but if you're talking about young ones, you may have to show them how to get out. Yeah. I would generally try and use something that was small enough that they didn't have a problem getting out of it on their own. Maybe a plant saucer for the really young ducklings rather than a wading pool like this. Horse watering bowls, they sell some of these that are about yay deep. That's kind of an intermediate size. Actually, I think they sell, those are for feeding grain. I always like using those for water for my dogs outside. Yes, ducks need a pool even in the winter. And that means either putting a heater in the pool, and they make heaters for this kind of stuff. You can get heaters designed for livestock water troughs from like Tractor Supply that you can put in the pool. It's not going to make the pool steamy hot, but it will keep it warm enough that it doesn't freeze over. These also sometimes get sold at wild bird supply stores. People will use them in bird baths for the wild birds outside in the winter. Or you can stick them in if you got dogs that are outside a lot in the winter, you can stick it in their water bowl too. So you either need a heater or smash the ice, and the water needs to be replaced frequently, at least twice a day. So in the morning and in the evening at the very, very least. So you want some good muck boots to clean out your duck area. You can see this pond here. The water's pouring over the edge, standing on the ground. They're having a grand old time, but that is just mud, serious mud. Now, on the positive side, ducks are less aggressive than chickens. And they will lay eggs just like chickens. Duck food is also easy to come by and cheap. So again, add fresh veggies. Again, duck food is going to have different food for very young ducks versus older ducks. And you should be adding fresh veggies, but you know, it's something, it's relatively cheap at the Tractor Supply store. If you like to go feed wild ducks at a local pond, please buy duck feed. Don't feed them bread. Bread is not a great thing to feed wild birds, period. And it's not, unless you're making bird bread, which is designed for birds' digestive systems, it's not good for most birds. People bread, not good for birds. Okay. Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I always throw bread out over my deck into the backyard. Should I stop doing that?
Yes, you should stop doing that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's a great thing to do for what you're not interested in eating if you get a farm share. Absolutely. So going back to Mary's question about putting out bread, that's going to attract all kinds of different animals, including things like rats and mice and raccoons that, you know, you don't really want those guys in your backyard. Birds will eat it, but it's not good for the birds. Possums will eat it, and possums are awesome. And yep, dogs, coyotes, all kinds of stuff, but it's not good for wildlife. All right, screenshot. And then there are geese. Geese are relatively large. They still need fresh water, but they are not as obsessed with water as ducks. And they are not as messy as ducks. These guys can be loud. And they can be territorial and become aggressive to people. And dogs and coyotes, especially strangers. So they're less likely to become aggressive to people they're familiar with. And because of this, they can make good guard animals. And a lot of people are terrified of geese. Geese, you know, they stick their neck down, they hiss, they come at you, they act really aggressive. Lots of people get chased by geese. A goose bill is, if they bite you, it's going to pinch. You might get a small bruise or a blood blister, but they can't break the skin. Their wings can definitely cause bruising. I got smacked by one of this breed specifically, smacked in the face by the goose wing. Got a nice black eye from that one. Not fun. But I was handling the bird I was deliberately doing something to the bird that the bird did not want done to it. So I'm not surprised that I got smacked. Because I've worked with lots of wild animals, I'm not intimidated like a lot of people. And, you know, I'm not going to run away from a Canada goose because I know the worst thing they can do to me is bruise me. Swans, on the other hand, those can break your bones. I'm not going to mess with a swan. Not going to do it. All right, so if you want a screenshot of the geese,
Oh,
and then I see Mary's hands up. So when you're done with that screenshot, what's your question, Mary? Or
okay,
comment?
yeah. I remember you telling me about your cats, how you can't pick them up. Well, my cats are the same way. I had rescued them from the Northeast Animal Shelter up here, and they missed that socialization period. So, I mean, they'll cuddle with me and everything else like that, but I cannot pick them up. So when I take them to the vet, they have to give me medication like gabapentin, and I give it to them the night before and the morning of. Well, I was trying to catch one of my cats the week that we were on vacation because the appointment was at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I grabbed her and she got me good right in the hand. She bit me. So the thing is now, I'm not taking them to the vets anymore. I'll never get a cat from an animal shelter again, and I'm never taking them to the vets anymore. I can't. We have gotten ripped to shreds by these cats trying to get them to the vet. Furniture knocked over and everything. You know, me and my husband chasing them around trying to do this. I can't do it anymore, but that's what the thing was I reached out and I was trying to grab her, and then she got me back with a good bite, and I wound up at urgent care.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
when I got smacked by the goose, I was picking it up and lifting it, and I was trying to get it up onto a surface, and I didn't have a good enough grip on it, and it smacked me, and I was not expecting that. Yes, there's a comment about swans drowning people. Yes, swans can drown people. There is at least one confirmed case of a guy who was out kayaking, got too close to a swan's nest, and one of the adults drowned him. And our last major category in poultry, turkeys. Turkeys are large. They're messy just because of their size. They can be aggressive. I've heard that they can be really nasty to each other. Yes, this is a turkey on a leash. I don't personally know anybody who's had turkeys. So I'm just kind of going based on what I have found by reading other people's stories about them, but yeah. So I don't have any pictures of quail. I don't have a lot of knowledge of keeping quail, but certainly you can keep them just like you can keep turkeys. Those quail are smaller, so they're going to be less messy. They're pretty quiet. They tend to be a little skittish, so a little bit shy, but they will lay eggs, and their eggs are also very tasty. Boy, I tell you, fresh eggs are so much better than what you can get in the grocery store. All right, so that is kind of the end of poultry. We have 7 minutes left in the class. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about diseases before we wrap up. So I'm going to clear this screen. Again, there's not very much written on here. When we talk about diseases in pet birds, prevention is important. It's much easier to prevent a disease than to treat it. There may be some unpleasant images when we're talking about diseases. My source of information for this section, a lot of it, most of it, came from a friend of mine who is an avian vet. So when I started teaching this class, I specifically talked to her about a lot of stuff. She's very, very knowledgeable about birds and pet birds in particular. So that's where this sort of information comes from. And she's in New England, so this is going to be pretty relevant to that part of the world. So, biggest causes of health problems in pet birds. The first one is nutrition. Some of these diseases are going to impact wild birds as well as pet birds, but we're really focusing on pet birds. We'll talk a little bit about wild birds at the end of this discussion. Okay. Nutrition, poor nutrition is the #1 cause of health problems in birds. Poor quality, low diversity, plain old too much or not enough. So the Amazon parrots aren't known for becoming kind of pudgy. So they tend to get too much, not enough. That tends to happen on seed diets where the owners don't realize that the seed hulls are not edible seeds. So the seed hull, it's just the outer wrapping of the seed. The bird will leave it in the bowl because it's not food. And new owners look at that and they think the bowl's food. The bowl's full, and meanwhile the bird is starving to death. The second biggest cause of health problems in pet birds is not keeping them clean enough. This increases the risk of bacterial diseases and fungal diseases specifically. Bacteria and fungus grow in dirty water or on bird droppings. If you don't clean the water bowl or the perches frequently enough, you can get a buildup of bacteria or fungi inside the cage. And bacteria, you can have a very large population of bacteria in the water and you can't see it. It's not like it's visible in the water. Number 3, chronic stress. Stress in any animal, including us, reduces immune system function. So it makes you more likely to catch a disease. And less able to fight it off. So it's going to be more severe. In addition to its effect on the immune system, chronic stress, high levels of stress over long periods of time can contribute to things like heart disease, just like in people. The number 4 most common cause of health problems in pet birds is inbreeding. We see this with something called renal tumors in budgies. We've talked about this. There's a lot of inbreeding in pets that are for sale, especially in pet stores. And you're more likely to have all kinds of genetic health problems if you have a lot of inbreeding. Okay, so that is kind of the introduction to this topic. We're going to go through types of vets, not just avian, but traditional versus alternative medicine, home care, what to do in cases of emergency, more specific than just not panicking and getting to the vet. Major problems, specific problems that a bird might have, what to do at the vets with your pet bird. Then we're going to talk about specific infections. So we're going to go through quite a lot of information next week. Now, before we go, I've got a story. So you guys know I live out on the West Coast, and it's definitely further along in the wild bird breeding season out here than it is back there. We have had a pair of juncos nesting in a pot on our back patio right by our back door for the past month and a half, maybe. Last night, I was walking around the backyard and I kept hearing a strange noise. And I looked over and there it was. There was a fledgling. The babies have jumped out of the nest. The fledgling got stuck between the screen and the glass of our sliding glass door. It couldn't figure out how to get out. So I had to, reach in, catch this little baby bird that was like literally probably an hour out of the nest. And I took it over to some bushes out in the yard where it would be a little more sheltered. And I let it go there. And it just looked so confused. Like, what did I do? Why did I jump out of the nest? What's going on? It was very, very cute. The bird is a junco, Junco. They're kind of gray with a white belly, darker head. Very common bird. All right. So if nobody has any questions, we're going to end on that. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.